While Johnny Depp was 22 years older than Amber Heard when they started dating, Tom Skerritt was 41 years older than Drew Barrymore when he played her lover in a movie. Natalie Portman had an awkward relationship with Jean Reno, and Bud Cort had an in-movie relationship with someone older than him by over 50 years. Unsurprisingly, Hollywood has some of the wildest age gaps in the entertainment industry. Today, we will check out the most uncomfortable age gaps in movies. Robert McDougall and Virginia Baker in Entrapment. Catherine Zeta-Jones plays an investor who works for an insurance firm, and her co-star Sean Connery plays a charming thief whose specialty is stealing international art. Their paths would intertwine after a delicate and priceless art piece went missing from an office building in New York. A certain chemistry builds between them as Zeta-Jones joins him on his heists in a bid to continue investigating him. The entire movie had a strange twist, as fans and viewers realized that Zeta-Jones was a thief and Sean was working with the FBI to get her arrested. However, Sean's love for the breathtakingly beautiful thief was greater than his love for his job, and he connived a plan to set her free. Most people were hooked on this strange yet almost predictable story, but one thing kept flipping fans off. Sean was 39 years older than Zeta-Jones when the film was released in 1999, with Zeta-Jones being 29 years old and Sean being 68. Another angle of the movie that left fans uncomfortable was the fact that the movie somehow makes us believe Catherine Zeta-Jones might sleep with Sean Connery. Love stories are cute, but making the couple look more like father and daughter instead of lovers isn't so cute. This next age gap is even more bizarre to think of, as the lead is practically dating her dad. Monica and Richard in Friends. One of the greatest American sitcoms ever created also has one of the strangest relationship age gaps seen on television. Friends' second season showed a relationship between Monica, played by Courtney Cox, and Richard, played by Tom Selleck, where they hooked up several times. Most fans didn't seem to have a problem with this pairing at first, but they soon realized that Richard was a grandfather and even showed Monica his grandkids on their first date. At one point, Richard even commented that he's a whole person who can drink older than her. This left fans with mixed feelings regarding the entire relationship. Executive producer Scott Silvery even spoke about how they never intended for the relationship to last as long as it did. With Courtney and Tom Selleck in season 2, if I'm not mistaken, there was no sense at first that was going to become a relationship with a capital ER, he says. They went into that and it was going to be one episode, 2 tops. And then they had such good chemistry, the producers and the writers at the time decided to explore it a little more, he further explained. What made matters worse regarding their relationship was that Richard was Monica's dad's best friend. It's shocking to say that this isn't the only strange age gap Monica had in the series, but fans enjoyed the show regardless. This relationship seems cool, but uncomfortable to watch, unlike this next one. Liza Weil and Michael York from Gilmore Girls. Next on our list is yet another huge age gap. This time it's featured on an American comedy drama television series called Gilmore Girls. The show began airing on October 5th, 2000, with Lauren Graham and Alexis Bledel starring as Lorelai and Rory Gilmore respectively. Paris, who was played by Liza Weil, and Asher, played by Michael York, first met when they were introduced to each other by Rory's grandfather. Asher was his former classmate and also a professor. Most fans found the introduction as nothing serious, but were quite surprised when it suddenly bloomed into a romance. This surprise came with mixed feelings regarding the relationship, as Asher was old enough to be Paris's grandfather. Not only was Asher old enough to be her grandfather, he was also a well-known womanizer who almost couldn't help himself. What's more, Paris was barely of age at the time of this encounter, leaving fans wondering just what goes on in the minds of show directors and producers. Weil would later speak on the part and confess that she was very much interested in it. She tagged it as a turning point for her character and even stated that "I think it warmed her for sure. It was very well handled as well. I'm a fan of that relationship too." Next, we've got a dad who accidentally set his daughter up in a relationship with someone his age. Sarah Hyland and Nathan Fillion in Modern Family. We've got yet another weird relationship age gap in an American television sitcom. Modern Family, which began airing on September 23, 2009, shows the lives of 3 diverse family setups living in suburban Los Angeles. Nathan Fillion appeared on the show in a few guest appearances and played Rainer Shine. It didn't take long for him to spark an unexpected relationship with Haley Dunphy, played by Sarah Hyland. This relationship was strange for a couple of reasons, mainly because Rainer was Sarah's dad's friend and icon. Another reason fans disapproved of Sarah and Nathan's relationship was that Phil, Sarah's dad in the show, accidentally hooked them up.
Crossing a line. Can I give you my daughter Haley's number?
Really?
Yeah, she's available and she actually expressed some interest.
Fillion probably took this statement wrong, as Phil was only trying to get his daughter a job as his makeup artist. Sadly, he had to accept that his daughter was dating someone in his age. Luckily, this relationship ended after Sarah rejected Nathan's marriage proposal. Fans were more relieved than sad about this, as they could finally enjoy their favorite show without the awkwardness. Our next pick is uncomfortable for adults to see, but often considered a high school boy's fantasy. Mark Salling and Idina Menzel in Glee. Fans of the American jukebox musical comedy drama Glee also received their fair share of uncomfortable relationships on the show. A new and even more complicated relationship bloomed between Puck, played by Mark Salling, and Shelby, played by Idina Menzel. Puck, who was a teenager at the time, yet also a father, developed feelings for Shelby, a vocal teacher. This brewing relationship was on its way to crossing some uncomfortable lines with the fans, but it went on anyway. It seemed as though they hadn't crossed enough boundaries and decided to make matters worse by having Shelby adopt the baby Puck had with Quinn. Salling would talk about their strange entanglement, as he said, "I think his feelings for Shelby right now are pretty intense and pretty overwhelming," and added, "The fact that she has his baby now is a pretty strong bond." Salling would also tease how Puck and Shelby's relationship could be the real deal by saying, he could be in it for the long run. It could be the real deal. Sadly, or should I say thankfully, this wasn't the case, as Shelby wasn't interested in being in it for the long run, stating that Puck was just a teenager and only had a crush on her. She was also worried about losing her job if people found out she was dating someone far younger than her, and a student at that. This next pick proves that even the greatest shows out there can have uncomfortable twists and plots. Patty Considine and Olivia Cooke in House of the Dragon. Considered one of the greatest TV shows to ever be released, House of the Dragon shows fans what happened nearly 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and 172 years before the birth of the great Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons. King Viserys Ferns Targaryen, played by Patty Considine, unfortunately, lost his first wife during the show. Otto Hightower convinced his daughter Alicent, played by Olivia Cooke, to get closer to the bereaved monarch. Their plan turned out successful, as the king chose her as his second wife. This began a rather questionable relationship, as their age gap was considered mind-blowing and uncomfortable. Alicent arrived at King's Landing when she was only 13 years old and became King Viserys' second wife about 5 years later. In the show's source material, Viserys is a little older than 30 when this marriage happens, but the live action makes things even crazier by starring a 49-year-old actor. That's a shocking age gap between actors, but everyone seemed okay with it. No one wants to say anything bad about what's considered the greatest show in the world. This age gap might be disturbing, but it doesn't come anywhere near this next pick. Lester Burnham and Angela Haynes in American Beauty. Next on the list is a movie that won this lead actor an Oscar for Best Actor. You might be wondering why such a movie will be on this list. It's because Kevin Spacey, who played Lester Burnham, starred as a middle-aged loser who needed to take control of his life after falling in love with a high school student. The large age gap between the actors wasn't even the worst part of the entire movie, as Lester didn't just fall in love with the young girl and fantasized about her on several occasions, once even seeing her lying naked in a bed of roses, and also taking a bath in roses. This was uncomfortable to watch, as the young girl was also Lester's daughter's best friend, Angela. Roger Ebert pointed out that this strange interaction wasn't a simple relationship, but focused on how one yearns for youth, respect, power, and beauty. Regardless of whether the plot is inspiring or not, fans couldn't help but be revolted by the fact that a grown man fantasized about sleeping with an underage girl. Actress Kirsten Dunst, who was initially cast to play Angela, refused the role because "When I read it, I was 15 and I don't think I was mature enough to understand the script's material. I didn't want to be kissing Kevin Spacey," and also sarcastically asked, "Come on, lying there naked with rose petals?" Talk about downright disturbing. Our next pick dials things down a notch, but is still uneasy on the eyes. Jean Reno and Natalie Portman in Leon, the Professional. This next mention is a movie directed by Luc Besson and was released in 1994. Leon, the Professional, left its audience feeling odd, as it's both incredible to watch and a bit uncomfortable. Leon, played by Jean Reno, was an Italian-American hitman, or cleaner as he calls himself, and works in the Little Italy neighborhood of New York City. Matilda, played by Natalie Portman, is a grieving 12-year-old girl whose family was murdered by a psychotic and corrupt DEA agent. In a bid to get revenge on her family's killer, she seeks help from Leon, who agrees to help. Their relationship starts as sweet as they give off father-daughter vibes, but some fans noted their interactions were slowly becoming strange. For instance, Matilda begins crushing on Leon, dressing up as Madonna, and even telling strangers he's her lover. I'd be freaked out if I were one of those strangers, but let's not get into that. At some point, Leon tells Matilda that he loves her.
I love you, Matilda. I love you too, Leon.
But most fans chose to translate that as a sort of fatherly love. To be fair, Leon doesn't seem like the best father figure a child needs, as he's teaching Matilda how to be an assassin. This movie sends mixed feelings to its viewers, but it is way better than this next pick. Belle Powley and Alexander Skarsgård in The Diary of a Teenage Girl. Next, we've got a movie that's based on a graphic novel by Phoebe Gloeckner. Directed by Marielle Heller, The Diary of a Teenage Girl had the aim of starting certain conversations and pushing some untouched boundaries. The movie's major premise is about a 15-year-old Minnie Getzi, played by Belle Powley, trying to discover her sexuality, a subject hardly ever spoken of on the big screen. Things take a rather shocking turn in the film as Minnie ends up losing her virginity to her mom's boyfriend Monroe, played by Alexander Skarsgård. I know this sentence sounds unbelievable, but that's not even the worst part. In the show, Minnie was 15 years old, and Monroe was in his mid-30s. He was 20 years older than her. Sure, the interaction was completely consensual. It doesn't undermine the fact that she was a kid. Most people tried to defend the film by saying Belle Powley was actually in her 20s while acting the role, but forget to notice that people aren't watching her 20-year-old self on the screen. They are watching the wannabe cartoonist barely old enough to be called a teenager. Luckily, the film teaches its audience one lesson. A person can make whatever decision they want, but not every decision ends up being a good one. Hooking up with your mom's boyfriend is never a good idea. At least this next pick gives us a great love story. Ruth Gordon and Bud Cort in Harold and Maude. Our next pick is one of the most popular movies ever about May-December relationships. Released by Paramount Pictures in 1971, Harold and Maude was considered a box office flop. However, it gained a cult following over the years after its release. Most people nowadays consider it a must-watch cinema because it is captivating. The movie has a basic premise where a young boy, or should I say a kid, grows attached to a woman old enough to be his grandmother. It might sound basic, but it isn't, as it's not just about the uncomfortable sexual tension between them. Harold is a death-obsessed 20-year-old man who fakes suicide and visits random funerals. While doing this, he runs into 79-year-old Maude, whose lifestyle is quite the opposite of hers. She somewhat loves life and teaches Harold how to live as their relationship blooms. The young man learns a lot about living life, but their beautiful love story is tragically cut short as Maude intends to end her life on her 80th birthday. The film is really about choosing to say yes or no, and this somewhat compensates for the unusual age gap between the lead stars. Next on our list is a film that best describes a dirtbag and how twisted some people's minds are. Simon Rex and Susanna Son, Red Rocket. This particular mention on our list is probably one of the most uncomfortable matchups because it heavily uses the exploitation facts somewhat adults. Most movies show teenagers realizing how wrong the relationship back out. Red Rocket isn't such a movie as it shows how the strange love leads a teenager career in the adult movie industry. The film takes creating a horrible character to another level with Mikey Saber Davis, played by Simon Rex, being a former porn star and an irredeemable deadbeat. He is seen as a horrible person, and the movie slowly dives deeper into his sick and twisted persona. Saber begins dating and having sex with Rayleigh, aka Strawberry, played by Susanna Son. Strawberry is a 17-year-old clerk at a local donut shop and falls into Saber's unfortunate seduction. He preys on her romantically and sexually, and if that's not enough, he intends on preying on her professionally. At some point, he began viewing her as his one-way ticket back to the spotlight of his former career. How the movie became as popular as it was without any backlash remains a mystery to most people. It gets harder to watch as the movie goes deeper and deeper into this psychotic middle-aged man's mind. This next mention shows an actor notorious for being exclusively interested in women over a decade younger than him. Margot Robbie and Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street. Based on a true-life story directed by Martin Scorsese, The Wolf of Wall Street is an American satirical biographical black comedy film recounting Jordan Belfort's career as a stockbroker in New York City. Belfort, played by none other than Leonardo DiCaprio, begins his life as a poor man but experiences wealth while working as a Wall Street stockbroker. This reveals Belfort's darker side as he goes as far as leaving his first wife for someone much younger and hotter. He took the word younger to a different level as Naomi LaPaglia, played by Margot Robbie, was 23 years old and shy of 40. This age gap didn't bother viewers as several other eye-catching events took more attention. Some of these events include all the drugs and illegal substances used by the characters while having fun. And then there's the iconic scene where Belfort uses Naomi as a tray to use some of these drugs. It's safe to say that this is one of the least worrisome age gaps on this list, mostly because there was so much going on that people didn't care about it. Some love stories can be crazy, but none are as crazy as this next one, which continued outside the movie set. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard in The Rum Diary. Next, we've got a movie relationship that continued even off the set and became the real deal. Sadly, this real deal didn't last long, as one relationship member was borderline crazy. Paul Kemp, played by Johnny Depp, was the main character in the comedy drama film The Rum Diary. It was written and directed by Bruce Robinson and was based on a novel by the same name. Being a struggling author, Kemp gets a job at a newspaper and meets Chanot Holdsworth, played by Amber Heard. Their expected chemistry begins, and their relationship blooms into something no one was expecting. While filming, Depp was older than his co-star by over 2 decades, and most people expected their relationship to remain professional. That wasn't the case, however, as they would marry just 3 years later. Their marriage seemed beautiful on the outside, but still left some people uncomfortable. I mean, he's biologically old enough to be her dad. In reality, their relationship was the definition of not all that glitters is gold, because it ended as one of the most abusive relationships. Yeah, Depp went through a lot, even though he was far older and very complicated. Hey, at least they both made it out alive. If conniving and deceitful was a person, that's the lead star in our next pick, and the strange age gap present doesn't help matters. Drew Barrymore and Tom Skerritt in Poison Ivy. Coming in next is probably the largest age gap you've ever seen in a movie. Directed by Kat Shea, Poison Ivy is a 1992 American erotic thriller initially considered a box office bust. However, cable and video became favorable with home audiences in the mid-1900s. It became another film to gather a cult following as people seemed overly hooked on its plot. Its cult following wasn't the only strange thing about it, as its plot revolved around Sylvie Cooper, played by Sarah Gilbert, a poor street-smart girl named Ivy, played by Drew Barrymore. Ivy creeps her way into Sylvie's family by seducing her father, Daryl, played by Tom Skerritt, and by leaving Sylvie marveling at her uncaring free spirit. Her plan is somewhat successful, but still leaves people weirded out by the fact that a teenager had an affair with someone who was 41 years older than her. At least the film clarifies that the affair was a product of deceit. Some people attribute the film's box office disaster to this strange and unnecessary age gap, but the earlier mentioned cult following that developed years later says otherwise. What's even stranger to hear is that Barrymore stated she accepted the part to shed her child star image. What a way to demand for Hollywood to take her more seriously. This next pick proves that age isn't only based on physical appearance. Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things. Next up, we've got an age gap blending bizarre, uncomfortable, and disturbing. Based on the 1992 novel by Alistair Gray and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, Poor Things is a film that depicts events that took place in late Victorian London. An eccentric scientist, Godwin Baxter, played by Willem Dafoe, performs a procedure where he transplants the brain of a fetus into a woman's body. He names the woman Bella Baxter, played by Emma Stone. Bella soon meets Duncan Wedderburn, played by Mark Ruffalo, and runs away with him as she discovers her body's fully mature sexual functions. She and Duncan begin a sexual relationship, which leaves fans shocked as they attribute her age to her immature brain and not her mature body. Viewers then realize that a fully grown man is intimate with someone whose mind is no older than a toddler's. If that doesn't freak you out, I don't think anything else will. As the story continues, Bella's sexual interests grow far beyond what Duncan can provide, and she ventures into the world to find what best suits her. Although both stars were old enough while filming, the fact that she still has the mind of a child is still scary. Next is a love story that most people genuinely enjoyed, but were uncomfortable seeing. Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence in Silver Linings Playbook. Directed by David O. Russell, Silver Linings Playbook is an American romantic comedy drama film where the stars share a whopping 15-year age gap. Released in 2012, it tells the story of a man named Patrizio Solitano Jr., played by Bradley Cooper, who was recently released from a psychiatric hospital. He returns to his parents' house and is determined to get back with his estranged wife. While planning on how to pull off this reunion, he meets a young widow named Tiffany Maxwell, played by Jennifer Lawrence, who is over a decade younger than he is. Tiffany offers to help Pat get his wife back, but on one condition. Pat had to go to a dance competition with her. Needing all the help he can get, Pat agrees, and the two grow closer as they train. They even begin a romance together that makes viewers skeptical about their age. Cooper was 37 years old when the movie was released, and Lawrence was 22. This weird age gap was easily written off by the wonderful love story in the movie. It was also a major box office success, making over $200 million with its $21 million budget. At least the stars in this film didn't look forced, unlike this next movie. Tom Cruise and Annabelle Wallis in The Mummy. Standing as one of the most popular actors in modern cinema, Tom Cruise is almost considered a national treasure for all the mind-blowing movies he's been a part of. But his fame and fortune don't stop him from facing criticism for whatever strange acts he finds himself involved in. Like a certain star mentioned earlier, Cruise is noted to be interested in women who are questionably younger than he is. Released in 2017 as an American fantasy action-adventure film, The Mummy serves as a reboot of the franchise and stars Tom Cruise as a U.S. Army sergeant named Nick Morton. His partner and apparent love interest is named Jenny Halsey, played by Annabelle Wallis. One major issue film watchers had with this pairing was their age gap. Wallis was roughly 22 years younger than Cruise while staring at the woman he was interested in. Things also got weirder as fans noticed that Cruise was made to act as a character who's much younger than he is. It tried making him appear as a young daredevil in his 50s, and nowhere near young, forcing an actor to be what he isn't, and pairing him with someone who is over 2 decades younger than he is doesn't sound like the brightest of ideas. Luckily, they got away with it, and the movie turned out a profit. There's something questionable about the next pick. Brian Bonsall and Shay Stanley in Blank Check. This next pick should take the #1 spot because it is downright disturbing and infuriating to watch. Released on February 11, 1994, Disney's Blank Check is an American comedy film directed by Rupert Wainwright. It tells the story of 11-year-old Preston Waters, played by Brian Bonsall, who hits the jackpot after cashing out $1 million in clean money from the bank. The new millionaire spends the majority of the film squandering his money on unnecessary purchases, reminding fans that he's just a kid and not even a teenager yet. After squandering it all, he realizes that his family loves him, with or without the money, and he decides to leave the people he has met and return home. While this storyline sounds touching and has a lovely moral story, it becomes strange when Preston, an 11-year-old child, shares a goodbye kiss with Shay Stanley, played by Karen Duffy, who is 2 decades older than he is. Might think it's just an innocent kiss, but the conversation beforehand says otherwise.
So when can I see you again, Shay?
Why don't you give me a call and say about 10 years?
5,
7.
6.
Okay. It's a date.
Yeah, that sounded more like an appointment than a goodbye kiss. And the fact that she even bargains about what age he should be when they go on another date makes matters even worse. Our next pick shows that even some of the greatest franchises can have awkward age gaps. Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom in Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean is one of the best movie franchises to hit the big screens and is seen as a Hollywood treasure. It has a die-hard fan base who love and support the show in many ways possible. Starring the irreplaceable Johnny Depp and our next mention, Orlando Bloom, the movies take fans on an adventure across the vast seas in times when pirates were a force to be reckoned with. Starring as a blacksmith's apprentice named Will Turner, Bloom struggles with the fact that his father was a pirate, but ends up sharing that same fate and seemingly turns it into a family business. He falls in love with the beautiful Elizabeth Swann, played by Keira Knightley, who is the daughter of a well-established governor. Elizabeth spent most of her life fascinated by pirates and their way of life. She falls in love with Turner, which doesn't come as a surprise as he seems to match her taste in men. Most people were happy to see that such a touching love story could find its way into the franchise, but the weirdness came when fans realized that Keira was 17 years old when shooting the film and Bloom was 25. Most people say that 8 years isn't that big a gap in terms of modern-day relationship, but the fact that she was still a minor flipped people off. She even shared a kiss with Bloom, who I hope was as uncomfortable as we were while watching it go down. Last but not least, it is a film that almost exposed how weird the lead actor is. Woody Allen and Mariel Hemingway in Manhattan. Our last pick on this list is a movie that stars someone notorious for directing or starring in roles where the lead is significantly older than his female counterpart. Manhattan was Woody Allen's first film in black and white, and he both directed and starred as the main lead. It was considered one of the greatest movies ever made at one point. Allen plays a comedy writer named Isaac Davis. Davis, who is in his mid-40s, gets involved with a 17-year-old high school girl named Tracy, played by Mariel Hemingway. There were a lot of uncomfortable activities in the film, but one that stood out was a scene where he was amused when she ended a date because she had to study for a test. He even joked about it by saying, "I'm dating a girl who does homework." The film is one of the most beautifully filled movies set in New York City, and Allen would have gotten away with the insane age gap. Sadly, he approached Hemingway when she turned 18 and tried convincing her parents to let her travel to Paris with him. To no one's surprise, her parents quickly turned him down. If you enjoyed the video, don't go anywhere. Just click on any of the cards appearing on your screen right now and get even more exciting content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.